What's up, guys? It's Paris Head. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you tuned in to the last episode, then you know we talked all about the Tennessee Volunteers and why I think that team is very, very underrated heading into 2018. And I promised you guys that I'd be talking about why the Georgia Bulldogs are, in my opinion, overrated heading into 2018 and what we need to do in the SEC East to prevent Georgia from becoming what a lot of people already believe they are, which is a dynasty or the next Alabama. But before I get started, I don't know if you guys can see my shirt. It is a Vanderbilt shirt. You guys probably know from my last video that I'm a huge Tennessee Volunteer fan. And just kind of a little bit about me. I played college football for Vanderbilt 2012 and 2013. And, you know, it was pretty much my best offer, which is why I chose to go there. Great education, you know, the total package. And so that's why I went there. You know, so this is just some team gear that I had. I wear my team gear all the time. I like the way it looks. Not really a Vandy fan, but I am an alumni. So this is just more of me wearing my alma mater. You know, not really me trying to you know, promote Vandy or say I love Vandy. So just want to get that out of the way. You know, I'm still a diehard Tennessee fan. Just, you know, kind of wearing what's in my wardrobe. So got that out of the way. The Georgia Bulldogs, overrated. You know, when I say overrated, I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that I mean that Georgia isn't a good team. I think they're still a very good team. I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. I think they're still a top 15, a top 10 team. I really do. I think they have all the pieces that they need to be successful. But people want to crown them as the next Bama or the next Dynasty, and I want to kind of pump the brakes on that. Big thing for me is they lost some key players from last year. I know they're full of talent, right? They got all these 5 stars, which, you know, if you've been following football, you know that Georgia pretty consistently does have a lot of 5 stars. There's a lot of talent in the state of Georgia, a lot of talent down in Florida, which ain't far from Georgia. You know, a lot of talent in Alabama. So, you know, they have a lot of talent that they can easily reach to recruit. A lot of talent kind of in their own backyard. So there's always talent on that roster. But they lost some key players. Just start with the defense. Probably the biggest loss from that entire team is Roquan Smith. You know, he's an elite. I mean, he's probably even above elite. He's a super player. Like, this guy is the real deal. I mean, in my opinion, he's a future Hall of Famer if he stays healthy. I mean, he's that good. And if you just pick any game you want, go watch it from Georgia last season. Go watch him play, and I guarantee that Roquan Smith made a number of plays that were huge in that game. Right? Think about the national championship. I know he had a big time tackle on Bo Scarborough. It was like a 3rd and 2. Alabama dumped it out to Bo Scarborough, and Roquan's there to tackle him in the flats for a no-yard gain, and that was a huge 3rd down. He had another play like that against Oklahoma. I think they ran like a speed sweep. Just needed 2 yards. I think it was 3rd and 2 again. He made a lot of plays like that all over the field, and he's really a difference maker. And I think he made that entire front 7 better. He made that entire defense better, and they're going to really, really miss him this year. And they lost Reggie Carter, also their other inside linebacker. And so you got to wonder, you know, who's going to step up and play. I saw some guy, he wore number 6 last season. Not sure if he's still there, but he got in to play some inside linebacker to kind of spell Roquan from time to time. He wasn't very impressive. So, you know, just not really sure what they got and who's going to replace those guys. And not sure how much experience those guys have, because I saw Roquan and Reggie Carter pretty much all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, if there is any drop off and how much drop off there is from that linebacking corps. And then their D line, they're returning a lot of guys from that D line. But I mean, I don't think that it's an elite D line. I think they have a lot of talent, like they do at every position. But just from the way they played last season, I don't think that they were elite. I think that they got handled by some teams, and you see them get moved off the ball pretty consistently. Go watch a team like Alabama play. You pretty much never see them get moved off the ball. Even in the national championship against Georgia, Georgia had success running the ball, but it wasn't because the O-line was getting pushed. It was mainly, in my opinion, from what I saw, it was Alabama's linebackers weren't filling. They weren't getting to their spots And while the D-line was able to kind of hold their gap and kind of win at the point of attack, the linebackers weren't there, and Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb were able to win those battles. So I think D-line is good, but I don't think it's elite. I don't think that it's elite enough to make up for subpar linebacker play. So I think it's very important that Georgia can develop some inside linebackers. Otherwise, they're going to struggle. I think they'll give up some rushing yards pretty consistently. That's just my take on it. But I do think the strongest unit of this defense, maybe even of this team, is the secondary. I think they have two very good corners. I think they're both NFL caliber guys, and DeAndre Baker, and I forget 26's name. He's the other corner. He wears number 26. Those guys are both very physical. They make good open field tackles, and they cover pretty good most of the time. And so, I think they're pretty solid there at corner, and then safety. I really like J.R. Reed. I think he's definitely an NFL caliber guy. He reads and reacts very quickly, makes a lot of tackles close to the line of scrimmage. He sees it. He has what I call good eyes, right? So as a defensive player, you always have your keys that you're reading every play, right? So it may be you're reading the left tackle, right, or maybe you're reading the fullback. Whatever it is you're reading, he has his eyes in the right place, right? So maybe at the snap of the ball, he's reading his lineman to see, is it a run or a pass? If they give you a pass set, boom, his eyes go to maybe the receiver. Maybe he sees the route break, the route concept developing, whatever, and he identifies it very, very quickly and comes downhill quickly to make plays and make a lot of good tackles. So I really like him a lot. And then the other guy, I believe, will be I'm not sure how to say his last name. I think it's like LeCounte, something like that. He wears number 2. I think he's the other guy, and just from what I saw in the spring game, he looked pretty good, pretty athletic, and always seemed to be in good position. So I think the secondary is going to be very, very good. But I think that front 7 is where their weaknesses are, and that's not a good place to have your weaknesses. I think teams will be able to run the ball on them despite people really believing that they have a great D-line. I think the D-line is a little bit overrated, and maybe they underperform a little bit than what you would expect just from the talent that they have and in that group. And then looking at the offense, we'll start with the O-line. I think that they only lost, I believe, one lineman, Isaiah Wynn. I believe is the only guy they lost, which is their left tackle. He wore number 77, if I'm not mistaken. And he was their best lineman from what I saw last season. I'm not sure who they have replacing him, but I'm sure it's another guy. It's probably 5-star, probably pretty good. So shouldn't be much drop off there. But this O-line, they were good at times, but they were also bad at times. So very inconsistent. And I don't think that it's a mauling group. I keep comparing them to Alabama because that's what people want to do. They're not as consistent as Alabama. Like, they're not getting consistent push like Alabama consistently gets push. One thing I will say about this O-line is I believe they're coached very well, and they do a great job of getting to the second level. You can look on film and you can see there's a lot of plays where the linemen do a great job. They'll get a little chip block, and then they get onto the backers, or maybe the safeties roll down. They get onto the safety. They do a great job with that, and that creates big creases for running backs to bust big plays. And I think they do that as good as anybody in the country. But just from a mano-a-mano perspective, I think this unit is liable to get beat by a lot of teams they play, honestly. Pretty I would say overrated O-line in my opinion, just from what I saw watching film. And move to the receivers. I think they have a good group of receivers, a lot of talent, a lot of speed. I would say a very fast group, but not very much size. Unless there's a guy I'm not aware of. I don't know if they have a guy that's really in that core group that's tall and 6'1". And last year they had Javon Wims, which was a big-time security blanket for Jake Fromm. I think not having him to throw those jump balls to was going to really force Fromm to have to kind of grow up as a passer and make some more complex throws and make some throws into tighter coverage across the middle of the field and stuff like that. So we'll see how that works out for him. But overall, a speedy group, not much size. So be interesting to see kind of how the scheme changes to get those guys the ball and how successful they can be with that game plan. And then looking at the running backs, losing Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, I think is a lot bigger than a lot of people think. You look at Georgia, you say, man, this team has all these great running backs, DeAndre Swift, and they got Harrion, and they got Holyfield, and they got Zamir White, who I don't believe he's going to play this year. I know he tore his ACL. And then they got that the other freshman out of Miami, Cook, who's, from what I hear, has been lighting it up in fall camp. But I think DeAndre Swift is probably the best out of that group. He has a year under his belt and he has the experience. But watching him last season, I think that it was a pretty significant drop-off from Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and DeAndre Swift. There were a lot of plays that I felt like Swift had room to make something happen, but he didn't really get more than what was there. A lot of plays that you would say, hey, if that was Sony Michel, it might have been a touchdown, or whatever. It might have been a big gain. But Swift doesn't really have the ability to run through tackles like Sony Michel and Nick Chubb did. He can make you miss, but I still think he's not quite as he's as shifty as Sony Michel, I would say, but his moves don't seem to be as effective as Sony Michel's moves. So, and maybe that's because Sony Michel has more power, and so tacklers are respecting his power a little bit more, and then he can juke him a lot easier. But I just think if Swift's going to be their feature guy, I don't think the run game would be as good. And then Harrion's not as good as Swift, and Holyfield I don't think is as good as Swift either. So maybe the freshman Cook will come in and really be an explosive guy for him. But just from what we know about these guys, I don't think that this running game will be as strong as it was last year. I think the O-line isn't as good as people think, and I don't think they'll be able to run the ball at will like I think they want to, and like I think they'll be able to. And that brings us to the quarterback situation. Justin Fields and Jake Fromm. I think those are two very talented guys. I think Justin Fields is a guy that a year or two from now will be very, very talented and will be very effective as a quarterback. But from what I saw in the spring game, he does have a live arm. He is athletic, but he's not ready to play, in my opinion. He missed some pretty easy throws and just wasn't consistent enough for me. Now, he is a true freshman, so of course I give him that. But a lot of Georgia fans want him to be the guy this year, and I don't think you should take Fromm out. I think Fromm's proven that he can get it done for you. So why would you want to put a freshman in when he's not ready to play? I think Jake Fromm, being a true freshman last year, he looked kind of shaky, I would say, in the beginning of the season. He missed a lot of easy throws to guys that were open, and you could tell that Jim Chaney was really trying to kind of dumb down the route combinations for him. A lot of hitches, a lot of run pass options, a lot of jump balls to Javon Wims. But as the season went on, you started to see him kind of complete some deep digs and deep outs a little bit more consistently, and was really able to make some throws to keep his team in some games and sustain some drives. So by the end of the season, he did make a believer out of me, and I do think he's a very good quarterback. And it's going to be interesting to see how effective he is this season without a dominant running game, because I don't believe they'll have one. And without having that big body receiver like he had last year in Javon Wims. So, I don't know if he's made enough strides in this offseason to really be able to really be a guy that can come out and win games for his team, not just manage games and not just keep his team in games, but can go out there and they say this game's on you. We're coming out, we're going to pass this ball 40 times, and you're going to have to make some throws. I'm not sure if he's that guy yet, but only time will tell. So, I don't think this offense will be as potent as it was last year, and I don't think the defense will be as strong as it was last year. So I just think this team isn't going to be as good as they were last season. I'm still waiting to see what this team's going to do this season before I want to crown them as a dynasty. But I do think that the pieces are in place and that the momentum and hype is there for them to become a dynasty, just because of their location being in the state of Georgia. It's a very fertile recruiting ground. And then Florida's to the south. You have Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, not too far away, and Tennessee, South Carolina, not too far away. So there's a lot of talent in this region, and they're already off to a great recruiting start in 2019. I believe they have 5 stars, which they're pretty much on pace to set another record, I think, with most 5 stars in the recruiting class. And I think it's because a lot of people are believing the hype. Everybody believes in Kirby Smart as a coach. And Georgia, the University of Georgia, as much as I hate Georgia, it's a very attractive university to college kids. It's a great college town, pretty good academic school, and they're successful on the field. So, why wouldn't you want to go there? And they're going to be able to get a lot of recruits. But what needs to happen this year is the SEC East, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, Missouri, like they need to step up and kind of derail this hype train that Georgia's riding on. Because if Georgia goes undefeated in the East again, if they go to the SEC Championship again, I think a lot of recruits are going to continue to want to commit there, and all their current commits are going to stay committed. But I think if Georgia can come out and lose, a game or two, or maybe even 3, then some of those recruits may decommit. Maybe come to places like Tennessee and Florida, wherever, that is showing that they can beat Georgia, and showing that Georgia is actually a fraud and not who everybody thinks they are. They aren't Bama. They aren't a dynasty. But if the East can't get it done this season, it may be too late, because if Georgia has another class like they had last year, then that's 2 years worth of those type of classes. They're going to be tough to beat, even if the coaching isn't as good or whatever. It's tough to lose with that much talent. So I think it's pivotal that the East steps up and stops them this year to keep the playing field as level as possible, because it's definitely an opportunity for that dynasty to emerge for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's my take on Georgia. I'm kind of waiting to see what they do this season, seeing how they replace all those key losses that they had, and I don't think this team will repeat. I think this team will lose. I think they may lose to South Carolina. I think Tennessee can beat them. Don't know much about Florida yet, so don't really believe in Dan Mullen that much to think he's going to turn them around like that instantly. But you never know. I think that Auburn will beat them, and LSU's a team you never really know. They may get them too. So they could lose 2 or 3 games, I think, and really have a subpar season by what they're expecting to do this upcoming season. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. Again, I'm Paris Head, and if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you want to see more, and just stay tuned for the next video.